The nurse pulled me aside. Your child said something. The fluorescent lights in Maplewood Elementary's main office buzzed overhead as I signed the visitor log, my pen shaking slightly. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Nurse Patricia had called me 20 minutes earlier with those 6 words that made my stomach drop. Your child said something concerning today. Mrs. Chin will be right with you, the secretary said, not meeting my eyes. That was my first clue something was seriously wrong. Linda Morrison had known me for 3 years, ever since Emma started kindergarten here, and she'd never been anything but warm and chatty about weekend soccer games and school fundraisers. I smoothed down my navy blazer and tried to look professional, composed. After all, I was Sarah Mitchell, MSW, a licensed clinical social worker who dealt with crisis situations daily at the Department of Family Services. I helped other families navigate their worst moments. Surely I could handle whatever my 7-year-old daughter had said that warranted an emergency meeting. But my hands were sweating as I clutched my purse, and that familiar knot of dread was forming in my chest, the same one I'd carried through 18 months of divorce proceedings with Marcus. Sarah? Nurse Chin appeared in the doorway, her usually bright smile replaced by something more cautious, more clinical. Thank you for coming so quickly. Please, come in. I followed her into the small office that smelled of antiseptic and the peppermint tea she always kept brewing. Emma's backpack, the purple one with unicorns that she'd picked out at Target in August, sat in the corner chair. Where's Emma? I asked, settling into the chair across from her desk. She's in the library with Mrs. Rodriguez. I thought it would be better if we spoke privately first. Patricia folded her hands on her desk, and I noticed she had a yellow legal pad with notes scrawled across it. My stomach lurched. Sarah, I need to ask you some questions, and I want you to know this isn't easy for me. Emma came to see me today around lunchtime. She had what looked like finger-shaped bruises on her upper arm. My mouth went dry. Bruises? When I asked her about them, she became very upset. She told me. Patricia glanced down at her notes. She said you grabbed her really hard last night because she spilled juice on your work papers. She also mentioned that you've been different since the divorce, that you yell a lot and sometimes don't feed her dinner when you're angry. The room felt like it was tilting. Patricia, that's not true. None of that is true. She was very specific, Sarah. She knew details about your work schedule, said you'd been stressed about a case involving a family named Rodriguez. How could she know about the Rodriguez case? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. That case was confidential. I'd never discussed it at home. Ever. But Marcus knew about it. Marcus, who'd been texting me constantly about our next custody hearing scheduled for November 15th. Marcus, who owed me $2,400 in back child support and had been fighting for joint custody to reduce his payments to $200 a month instead of the current $600. Marcus, who'd spent our entire marriage gaslighting me into believing I was the problem. Patricia, I said carefully, my social worker training kicking in, I need you to tell me exactly what Emma said. Word for word. And I need to see these bruises. Something in my tone must have registered, because Patricia's expression shifted slightly. After all, she'd known me for 3 years too. Patricia studied my face for a long moment, then reached for a digital camera on her desk. I photographed the marks, as required by our protocol, she said quietly. Sarah, I've known you for 3 years. I've seen how much you love Emma, how involved you are in her schooling. This doesn't fit with what I know about you. She turned the camera's display toward me, and my heart stopped. There, on Emma's pale upper arm, were 4 distinct oval marks that looked exactly like fingerprints. They were fading but unmistakable, the kind of bruises I documented in dozens of child abuse cases. My God, I whispered. Patricia, I swear to you, I have never laid a hand on my daughter. Never. Tell me about last night, she said, her voice gentler now. Walk me through your evening with Emma. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think past the panic. She stayed with Marcus Sunday through Monday night, it was his extended weekend. He dropped her off at school yesterday morning, so I didn't see her until I picked her up at 3:15. We went to Target to buy supplies for her science project on butterflies. Then we went home, had grilled cheese and tomato soup for dinner while we worked on the project together. She spilled apple juice on my laptop, not work papers, and I just grabbed paper towels to clean it up. We watched an episode of Bluey, she took a bath, and I read her 3 chapters of Junie B. Jones before bed. Patricia was taking notes. What time was bedtime? 8:30, same as always. She was excited about presenting her butterfly project today. My voice cracked. She was happy, Patricia. She was giggling during bath time because I let her use the lavender bubble bath that's supposed to be for special occasions only. And work? You mentioned the Rodriguez case, how would Emma know about that? The pieces were clicking into place, each one making me feel sicker. I've been working on it for 6 weeks. It's a custody modification case involving parental alienation. The father has been coaching his children to lie about abuse. The irony wasn't lost on me. The only person I discussed it with is my supervisor, Linda, and my ex-husband. Marcus knows I'm working on it because he saw the case file name when he picked Emma up 2 weeks ago. I had it on my kitchen counter, just the folder, nothing confidential visible, but he commented on the name Rodriguez, said it was his old soccer teammate's last name. Patricia set down her pen. Sarah, I need to ask this directly. Is there any possibility Marcus could have caused these bruises? He's never been physically abusive, I said automatically, then stopped. But during our marriage, he was manipulative. He twists situations, make me question my own memory of events. And lately, since the custody hearing was scheduled, he's been different. More aggressive about getting extra time with Emma. He keeps saying I'm an unfit mother because I work too much. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, *K, heard Em had to visit the nurse today. Hope she's okay. Let me know if you need me to pick her up early. I can take her tonight if you're too busy with work *. I stared at the message, my blood running cold. Patricia, how would Marcus know Emma went to see you? I just got here 20 minutes ago. She frowned. I only called you. No one else should know unless. She paused. Unless Emma called him herself. She asked to use the phone around 1:30, said she had a stomachache and wanted to talk to her daddy. The manipulation was so perfect, so calculated, I almost admired it. Almost. I need to see Emma now, I said, standing up. And Patricia? I'm going to need copies of everything, your notes, the photos, the time logs. Because I think my ex-husband is using our daughter as a weapon, and I need to prove it before he destroys both our lives. Patricia led me down the familiar hallway toward the library, past bulletin boards covered in Halloween decorations and student artwork. My heels clicked against the linoleum with each step, echoing my racing heartbeat. Through the windows, I could see other parents picking up their kids, normal Tuesday afternoon routines that felt like they belonged to a different world. Before we go in, Patricia said, stopping outside the library door, I should mention that Emma asked some very specific questions after she called her father. She wanted to know what happens to children when their moms get in trouble. She asked if she'd have to live with her daddy all the time. My hands clenched into fists. What did you tell her? I told her that she was safe and that we were going to figure everything out. But Sarah, she seemed almost rehearsed. Like she was waiting for me to ask certain questions. Through the glass door, I could see Emma at a round table with Mrs. Rodriguez, the librarian. She was coloring, her blonde head bent over a worksheet, looking so small and innocent in her pink sweater, the one I'd bought her just last week when she complained that all her clothes were babyish. Emma? I called softly as we entered. She looked up, and for just a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear? Guilt? Then she was running toward me, arms outstretched. Mommy. My arm hurts, and I told Nurse Chin about how you were mad about the juice. Emma, sweetheart, I interrupted gently, kneeling down to her level. Can you show me where it hurts? She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the bruises Patricia had photographed. They were more faded now, probably from this morning, which meant they'd happened sometime yesterday. But yesterday, Emma had been with Marcus until school drop-off. Baby, when did this happen? Was it when you were with Daddy Monday night? Emma's eyes darted between me and Patricia. No, Mommy. You did it. Remember? You were really mad because I spilled on your Rodriguez papers, and you grabbed me and said I was just like Daddy, always making messes. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because of the accusation, but because of how perfectly crafted they were. Emma knew I'd never say she was just like Daddy. I'd made a point throughout the divorce of never speaking negatively about Marcus in front of her. But Marcus had no such restraint. Emma, look at me, I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. Do you remember what we had for dinner last night? Grilled cheese, she said immediately. And what happened when you spilled the juice? Her face scrunched up in concentration. You were mad. You grabbed my arm. What color was the juice, baby? Apple juice. It was apple juice, and it got on your work papers about the Rodriguez people, and you said, she stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as if she'd said something wrong. Patricia and I exchanged glances. Emma couldn't have known the family's name from spilling juice on papers that were never out on the table. Mrs. Rodriguez, I said to the librarian, who'd been quietly shelving books nearby, could you give us a moment? Once we were alone, I sat cross-legged on the carpet. Emma, I need you to tell me the truth. Did Daddy teach you what to say about last night? No, she said quickly. Too quickly. Daddy said I should always tell the truth about how you treat me. He said it's important for the judge to know if you're being a good mommy. There it was. My 7-year-old daughter had just revealed that Marcus was coaching her for our custody hearing, scheduled for exactly 3 weeks from today. When did Daddy tell you this? Lots of times. He said sometimes mommies get too stressed after divorces and they're not good at taking care of kids anymore. He said if you ever hurt me or forgot to feed me, I should tell grown-ups so they can help. Patricia was writing everything down, but I could see the horror on her face. Emma, baby, has anyone ever hurt you? Really hurt you? She nodded solemnly. Daddy says you hurt my feelings when you work too much. And yesterday morning before school, he squeezed my arm really tight and said it was practice for what it feels like when someone is really angry. My daughter had just confessed that her father had given her those bruises while coaching her to blame me. The silence in the library stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Emma seemed to realize she'd said something she wasn't supposed to, because her face went pale and she started backing away from me. I wasn't supposed to say that part, she whispered, her brown eyes, Marcus's eyes, filling with tears. Daddy said the practice part was our secret. Patricia's pen had stopped moving. Emma, sweetheart, can you tell us more about this practice? I can't. Daddy says if I tell the wrong things, the judge might make me live with Mommy all the time, and then I'll be sad because Daddy will be lonely. Emma's lower lip trembled. But I don't want Mommy to get in trouble either. I don't want anyone to be mad at me. My heart shattered. Marcus had put our 7-year-old in an impossible position, making her believe she was responsible for everyone's happiness. It was emotional abuse, plain and simple, the kind I'd seen destroy children in my caseload. Nobody's mad at you, baby, I said, reaching for her hand. She let me take it, and I was relieved when she didn't flinch away. You're not in trouble. You're being very brave by telling the truth. Patricia cleared her throat. Emma, I want you to know that you're safe here. No one is going to be upset with you for telling us what really happened. Can you tell me more about the practice with your daddy? Emma looked between us, then sat down heavily in one of the tiny library chairs. Sometimes when I'm at Daddy's apartment, we play a game called What Would You Tell the Judge? Daddy says it's important because the judge is going to ask me questions about living with Mommy. What kind of questions? I managed to ask. Like, does Mommy feed me good food, and does she help with homework, and does she ever get really angry? Daddy says I should remember the times when Mommy works late and I have to eat cereal for dinner, or when she seems tired and stressed about her job. Patricia was writing again. And what did Daddy tell you to say about those times? That Mommy cares more about work than me. And that sometimes she forgets to make real dinners because she's too busy with her Rodriguez case. Emma wiped her nose with the back of her hand. But Mommy, you only gave me cereal for dinner that one time when you had the flu, and you felt really bad about it. You made pancakes the next morning to say sorry. The detail hit me like a punch. That had been 6 months ago, in March, when I'd had a stomach bug so bad I could barely stand. Marcus had refused to take Emma that night, claiming he had important plans, so I'd managed crackers and ginger ale for her dinner and put her to bed early. The next morning, feeling slightly better, I'd made Mickey Mouse pancakes and let her eat them in my bed while we watched cartoons. Emma, how does Daddy know about that night when I was sick? I told him about the pancakes because they were really good. And he asked lots of questions about why you gave me cereal and if you do that a lot. Her face crumpled. I didn't know he was going to use it for the judge game. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Em seems really upset when I talk to her. Maybe this nurse thing is more serious than we thought. I'm worried about her emotional state when she's with you. We should probably discuss adjusting our custody arrangement. The audacity was breathtaking. He was already positioning himself as a concerned father, ready to swoop in and save Emma from her allegedly unstable mother. Patricia, I said, standing up and showing her the text, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Based on what you've heard today, what's your professional opinion about what's happening here? She looked at Emma, who was now coloring again but clearly listening, then back at me. Off the record? I think your daughter is being coached to make false allegations. On the record? I'm required to file a report with Child Protective Services about the bruises, regardless of who caused them. I understand. But Patricia, if you file that report naming me as the suspected perpetrator, it goes into the system. Even if it's ultimately unfounded, it could destroy my career. I work for DFS, I can't have an active CPS case against me. Then what are you suggesting? I took a deep breath. I'm suggesting we file the report correctly, naming the actual perpetrator. Emma just told us that Marcus squeezed her arm as practice for what it feels like when someone is angry. That's physical abuse used as a tool for coaching false testimony. File the report against him. Emma looked up from her coloring. Are you going to call the police on Daddy? The fear in her voice broke my heart, but I knew I had to be honest. Baby, Daddy did something wrong when he hurt your arm and taught you to say things that weren't true. Sometimes when grown-ups make bad choices, other grown-ups have to help fix it. But I love Daddy. I know you do. And that's okay. You're allowed to love Daddy even when he makes mistakes. Patricia was already reaching for her phone. Sarah, I'm going to call my supervisor and the CPS hotline. This situation is beyond what I can handle alone. But I want you to know, I believe Emma's telling the truth now. As she dialed, I knelt beside my daughter again. Emma, I need you to be very brave for just a little bit longer. Some people are going to want to talk to you about what happened with Daddy. Can you tell them the same truth you told me and Nurse Chen? She nodded solemnly, then leaned forward to whisper in my ear, Mommy, I never wanted to lie about you. Daddy said it would help him not be sad anymore, but it made my tummy hurt. 2 hours later, we sat in a conference room at the Department of Family Services, my own workplace, which felt surreal and mortifying. Emma was in the children's interview room down the hall with Janet Morrison, a forensic interviewer I'd worked with dozens of times. Now Janet was interviewing my daughter about allegations against her father. My supervisor, Linda Torres, sat across from me with a stack of paperwork and a grim expression. Sarah, I need you to understand the position this puts us in. You can't work any active cases while there's a CPS investigation involving your family, even if you're not the accused party. I understand. My voice sounded hollow. How long will that take? Depends on what Emma tells Janet, and whether we can substantiate Marcus coaching her. The bruises are documented, but proving he caused them specifically to coach false testimony. Linda shrugged. It's complicated. Detective Ray Patel from the Family Crimes Unit knocked and entered without waiting. I knew Ray from several joint cases. He specialized in custody manipulation and parental alienation. Sarah, I just got off the phone with Patricia Chen and reviewed the photos. I need to ask you some direct questions. Of course. Has Marcus ever threatened to use Emma against you in custody proceedings? I thought back through 18 months of increasingly hostile interactions. Not in those exact words. But 3 weeks ago, when I reminded him about the $2,400 in back child support, he said I shouldn't worry about money because things might change after the November hearing. He said Emma was getting old enough to tell the judge what she really thought about living with me. Ray made notes. Any witnesses to that conversation? We were at Emma's soccer game. Other parents were around, but I don't know if anyone heard specifically. I paused, remembering. Wait. He said something else that day. He asked if I'd gotten any difficult cases at work lately, ones that might require overtime. When I mentioned the Rodriguez case, just the name, nothing confidential, he got this look. He said it was ironic that I was working on a case about bad parents when I barely saw my own daughter. The same Rodriguez case Emma mentioned today? Yes. And Ray, there's no way she could have known that name from anything at my house. I keep all case files locked in my home office. She's never even been in there. Linda leaned forward. Sarah, I pulled the Rodriguez file after Patricia called. The parallels are disturbing. Father coaching children to make false abuse allegations, using specific details about the mother's work schedule and stress levels, timing everything right before a custody hearing. Ray's phone buzzed. That's Janet. She's finished with Emma. He stood. I'll be right back. Alone with Linda, I felt the full weight of the situation settling on me. This could end my career, couldn't it? If Marcus succeeds in making these allegations stick, yes. Even if they're ultimately proven false, the stigma in our field. She didn't need to finish. A social worker accused of child abuse, even falsely, rarely recovered professionally. Ray returned with Janet, whose expression was unreadable. Emma's story was consistent with what she told you and the nurse, Janet said. She described multiple instances of Marcus coaching her, including practice sessions where he would demonstrate how hard an angry parent might grab. She knew details about your work that she couldn't have learned from you. But I could hear the but in her tone. She's 7. Defense attorneys will argue she's confused, mixing up timelines, maybe even that you coached her to blame Marcus after you got caught. Janet sat down heavily. Kids her age make unreliable witnesses, even when they're telling the truth. Ray pulled out his phone. I'm going to try something. Sarah, I want you to call Marcus. Tell him you're concerned about Emma's emotional state after today's events. Ask if he wants to meet tomorrow to discuss her well-being. Don't mention the CPS report, he might not know about it yet. Why? Because if he's been coaching her, he'll want to do damage control. He might say something incriminating if he thinks he still has the upper hand. My hand shook as I dialed Marcus's number. It rang twice before his familiar voice answered, artificially cheerful. Sarah. I was just thinking about you. How's our little Emma doing? She's pretty shaken up, Marcus. The nurse was concerned about some bruises, and Emma got confused about how they happened. I kept my voice neutral, professional. I think all this divorce stress is affecting her more than we realized. Oh, absolutely. Kids Emma's age can get mixed up about details, especially when they're upset. His tone was sympathetic, but I caught something else underneath. Relief? Maybe we should consider having her talk to someone, a child psychologist who specializes in divorce adjustment. Ray was nodding encouragingly, making keep-going gestures. That's not a bad idea. Emma mentioned some kind of game you two play about talking to judges? Maybe we should make sure she understands that our custody arrangement isn't her responsibility. There was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. Kids say all kinds of things, Sarah. You know how imaginative Emma can be. Of course. But Marcus, if there's anything you think might help her feel more secure about the custody situation, maybe we should discuss it. Could you meet me tomorrow after I pick her up from school? Around 4:30? Sure, that works. Should I pick a neutral location? Maybe that coffee shop on Elm Street? After I hung up, Ray was smiling for the first time all afternoon. Perfect. He took the bait. The next morning, I sat in my car outside Emma's school at 7:45 a.m., watching Marcus's silver Honda pull up to the drop-off lane. Through my windshield, I could see him leaning over to talk to Emma before she got out, his hand on her shoulder, his mouth moving rapidly. Even from 50 feet away, the body language looked intense. Emma climbed out slowly, her unicorn backpack dragging behind her instead of bouncing on her shoulders like usual. She looked smaller somehow, like she was carrying invisible weights. I barely slept, spending most of the night researching parental alienation cases and texting my attorney, Rebecca Singh. Rebecca had been blunt. If Marcus gets Emma to repeat those allegations in front of a judge, you're looking at supervised visitation at best, and possibly losing custody entirely. We need concrete proof he's coaching her, not just Emma's word against his. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Jennifer in Portland, *saw your missed calls. What's going on? Call me when you can, *. I couldn't deal with family explanations right now. Not when I was about to record a conversation that could either save my daughter or send me to jail for entrapment. At 4:15 p.m., I parked across from Grind Coffee on Elm Street and tested the voice recording app Ray had helped me install. Testing, Wednesday, October 24th, 4:16 p.m., I whispered, then played it back. Crystal clear. Marcus arrived exactly on time, which shouldn't have surprised me. Punctuality had been one of his few reliable traits during our marriage. He changed from his usual work clothes into jeans and a pullover, his concerned dad costume. Sarah, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. You look tired. This whole situation must be really stressful. I activated the recording app under the table. It is. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Patricia Chen said Emma knew specific details about my work cases. Details she couldn't have learned at my house. I kept my voice steady, professional. How would Emma know about the Rodriguez case? His coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. The Rodriguez case? She mentioned it yesterday when she was talking about me being angry about work papers. But Marcus, that case file has never been anywhere Emma could see it. Ever. Kids pick up more than we think, Sarah. Maybe she overheard a phone conversation, or saw something when she was helping you organize your office. His tone was reasonable, but I caught him glancing toward the exit. I don't take work calls at home anymore. Not since the divorce. And Emma's never allowed in my office. I leaned forward. But you saw that file folder 2 weeks ago when you picked her up. You commented on the name Rodriguez. Did I? I don't really remember. But his left hand had started drumming on the table, the same nervous tell that used to surface when he'd lied about working late or forgotten to pay bills. Marcus, Emma also said something about practicing what it feels like when someone is angry. She said you squeezed her arm to show her. The drumming stopped abruptly. That's not what happened. So something did happen? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. When he looked up, something in his expression had shifted. Sarah, Emma is 7 years old. She gets confused. Sometimes when we're talking about the custody situation, she asks questions about what it's like living with you versus living with me. What kind of questions? Normal stuff. Whether you seem happy, whether you have enough time for her, whether you ever lose your temper. His voice was getting more confident now, like he was finding his footing. She's worried about you, actually. She says you cry sometimes when you think she's not looking. That was true, but how would Emma have told him that unless? When does she tell you these things? During our regular father-daughter time. We talk about everything. He spread his hands, the picture of innocent concern. Look, Sarah, I know this divorce has been hard on you. Maybe Emma's picking up on your stress more than you realize. Kids sometimes exaggerate or misremember things when they're trying to make sense of adult problems. I felt my control slipping. He was turning this around, making me question Emma's credibility while positioning himself as the stable, concerned parent. It was exactly what he'd done throughout our marriage. The bruises on her arm, Marcus. How do you explain those? Kids get bruises. Emma's active, she plays hard. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine now. Maybe you grabbed her harder than you realized when you were stressed about work. It happens to the best of parents. My phone, still recording under the table, captured every word of him gaslighting me in real time. You really think I hurt our daughter? Marcus reached across the table and touched my hand, a gesture that would look supportive to anyone watching. I think you're under a lot of pressure, and maybe you're not handling it as well as you'd like to admit. The audacity of his touch, gentle, patronizing, while he systematically destroyed my credibility made my skin crawl. But I forced myself to lean into it, to play the role he expected. Maybe you're right, I said, letting my voice waver slightly. Work has been overwhelming. The Rodriguez case especially, it's so similar to what we're going through that it's been triggering. A father trying to turn his kids against their mother. Marcus's hand stiffened on mine. Similar how? Parental alienation. Coaching the children to make false abuse allegations right before a custody hearing. I watched his face carefully. The father in that case even gave one of the kids bruises to make the story more believable. His hand withdrew completely. That's terrible. Some people will do anything to win, I guess. The strangest part is how methodical he was about it. Teaching them specific details about the mother's work schedule, having them practice their stories until they sounded natural. I took a sip of my latte, keeping my tone conversational. The forensic interviewer said the kids knew information they couldn't have learned naturally, case names, confidential details. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for, Marcus said, but sweat had appeared on his forehead despite the coffee shop's air conditioning. That's exactly what this father said when he got caught. He claimed his 8-year-old just picked things up somehow. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages. The recording was pretty damning, though. Recording? Oh, the mother was smart. She secretly recorded him coaching the kids. In Washington state, you only need one-party consent for recordings, so it was completely legal. I looked up at him innocently. Lucky for her, because without proof, it would have been her word against his. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I should get going. I promised Emma I'd call her before bedtime. Marcus, wait. I reached for his arm, the same way he'd touched mine. I'm scared about this custody hearing. What if Emma gets confused on the stand? What if she says something that isn't accurate because she's nervous? He paused, looking down at me. For a moment, I saw something flicker across his face, calculation, like he was weighing his options. Emma's a smart kid, he said finally. She knows the difference between truth and stories. But Sarah, if she tells the judge that you've been having a hard time, that you're stressed about work, that maybe you lost your temper once or twice, well, that's not lying. That's just a 7-year-old being honest about what she's observed. What if she mentions things that aren't true? Like about me hurting her? Then you'll have to ask yourself why she would say something like that. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were cold. Kids don't usually make up stories about being hurt unless something made them feel that way. My recording app was capturing every word as he laid the groundwork for Emma's testimony. He was too smart to admit directly to coaching her, but he was essentially telling me exactly what she would say in court and why it would be believed. I just want what's best for Emma, I said. So do I. And maybe what's best is for her to spend more time with a parent who isn't crying, isn't overwhelmed by work, isn't grabbing her hard enough to leave marks. He leaned down, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. You know I'm right, Sarah. You know you haven't been yourself since the divorce. Emma deserves stability. After he left, I sat in my car in the coffee shop parking lot and played back the recording. Ray had been right, Marcus hadn't explicitly confessed to anything, but he'd revealed his entire strategy. More importantly, he'd just confirmed that Emma would be testifying about me grabbing her hard enough to leave marks that we now had evidence he had caused himself. My phone rang. Rebecca Singh. Sarah, we have a problem. Marcus just filed an emergency motion requesting immediate temporary custody. The hearing is tomorrow at 2 p.m. The courthouse steps felt like they stretched on forever as I climbed them at 1:45 p.m. the next day, my heels clicking against the concrete in a rhythm that matched my racing heartbeat. Rebecca Singh walked beside me, her briefcase in one hand and a thick manila folder in the other. Remember, she said as we approached the metal detectors, Judge Martinez has known you professionally for 2 years. She's seen you testify as an expert witness in custody cases. That works in our favor. But it also meant that if Marcus succeeded today, my reputation would be destroyed in front of someone who trusted my professional judgment on child welfare cases. The family court waiting area buzzed with the usual chaos, crying toddlers, stressed parents whispering urgently with their attorneys, social workers juggling multiple case files. I'd been on the other side of this so many times, providing recommendations about what was best for children. Now I was the parent fighting for my own child. Marcus sat across the room with his attorney, David Chen, no relation to Patricia, thankfully. David specialized in father's rights cases and had a reputation for aggressive tactics. Marcus wore his navy suit, the one he'd worn to our wedding 8 years ago, and kept checking his phone with an expression of concerned professionalism. At exactly 2 p.m., the bailiff called our case. Mitchell versus Mitchell, emergency custody modification. Judge Martinez looked tired as she reviewed the paperwork. She'd been handling family court for 12 years, and cases like this probably all blurred together after a while. Mr. Chen, you've requested emergency temporary custody based on allegations of physical abuse. Present your evidence. David Chen stood, all polished confidence. Your Honor, we have documented physical evidence of abuse, photographs taken by the school nurse showing finger-shaped bruises on the child's upper arm. The child disclosed to school personnel that her mother grabbed her in anger over spilled juice on work documents. He handed copies of Patricia's photographs to the judge. Seeing those bruises blown up to 8 by 10 prints made my stomach lurch, even knowing the truth about how they'd gotten there. Furthermore, David continued, the child expressed fear about her mother's increasing instability since the divorce. She reported that her mother often works late, sometimes forgets to provide adequate meals, and has become emotionally volatile regarding work stress. Judge Martinez studied the photos. Mrs. Singh, what's your client's response to these allegations? Rebecca stood, and I held my breath. Your Honor, we believe the child has been coached to make these false statements by her father. We have evidence that Mr. Mitchell has been systematically manipulating the child in preparation for custody proceedings. That's a serious counter-allegation, counselor. What evidence? This was it. Rebecca pulled out a small digital recorder. We have an audio recording of Mr. Mitchell essentially admitting his strategy to undermine Mrs. Mitchell's credibility through the child's testimony. David Chin shot to his feet. Objection. Washington state requires two-party consent for recordings. This is illegal evidence obtained through. Actually, Judge Martinez interrupted, Washington is a one-party consent state. If Mrs. Mitchell was present during the conversation, the recording is admissible. However, I'll need to review it before allowing it as evidence. She gestured for Rebecca to approach the bench with the recorder. The courtroom fell silent except for the soft whir of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic outside. I watched Judge Martinez's face as she listened through headphones, but her expression remained carefully neutral. After what felt like an eternity, she removed the headphones. I've heard enough to warrant a full investigation before making any custody modifications. Mr. Chen, your client's comments about the child testifying regarding Mark's hard enough to leave bruises combined with his detailed knowledge of what the child would say raises significant concerns about coaching. Marcus's face had gone pale. David Chen was frantically shuffling through papers, clearly caught off guard. However, Judge Martinez continued, I'm also troubled by the documented physical evidence and the child's statements to school personnel. Therefore, I'm ordering an immediate forensic evaluation of the child by Dr. Patricia Reyes, and temporary supervised visitation for both parents pending the outcome of the CPS investigation. My world tilted. Supervised visitation meant I could lose Emma entirely if this went wrong. Both parents? I managed to whisper to Rebecca, but Judge Martinez wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm scheduling an expedited hearing for Monday, October 29th, to review Dr. Reyes' findings and the CPS investigation results. Until then, all visits will take place at the Family Support Center on Maple Avenue, 2 hours each, Wednesday and Saturday for each parent. The gavel came down with a finality that echoed in my chest. 4 days. I had 4 days to prove that Marcus was manipulating our daughter, or I'd be seeing Emma twice a week in a sterile room with a social worker taking notes on every interaction. As we filed out of the courtroom, Marcus brushed past me in the hallway. This isn't what I wanted, Sarah, he said quietly, just loud enough for me to hear. But maybe some professional oversight will help you see how much stress you've been putting Emma under. Even now, even after being caught on tape, he was gaslighting me in front of witnesses. Rebecca pulled me aside once we reached the parking lot. Sarah, I need you to understand something. Dr. Reyes is excellent. She's one of the few forensic child psychologists in the state who specializes in parental alienation. But she's also thorough. She's going to interview Emma multiple times, review all the evidence, probably want to observe both of your supervised visits. What does that mean for Monday's hearing? It means everything depends on whether Emma feels safe enough to tell Dr. Reyes the truth about Marcus coaching her, and whether the CPS investigation can substantiate the abuse allegations against him. Rebecca's expression was grim. The recording helps, but it's not a smoking gun. Marcus never explicitly admits to coaching Emma or causing those bruises. That evening, I sat in my empty house staring at my phone. Emma was at Marcus's apartment, probably being prepared for what to say to Dr. Reyes. The thought of him using this time to refine her story, to make sure she understood the consequences of deviating from his script, made me feel sick. My phone rang at 8:47 p.m. Patricia Chen from the school. Sarah, I hope it's okay that I'm calling you at home. I heard about the court hearing today through the Family Services Network. It's fine, Patricia. What's going on? I wanted you to know that I've been thinking about Emma's behavior patterns over the past few months. I pulled her records, and there's something I think you should know. She paused. Emma has been to see me 17 times since school started in September. 17 times in 7 weeks. My heart sank. 17? For what? Stomachaches, mostly. Sometimes headaches. But Sarah, there's a pattern. She comes to see me almost exclusively on Tuesdays and Fridays, the days after she's been with Marcus for his overnight visits. I grabbed a pen and started taking notes. What did she say during those visits? Usually that her tummy hurt, that she felt worried about something but couldn't explain what. 3 times she asked if I thought her mommy loved her as much as her work. Twice she wanted to know what happens to kids when their parents can't take care of them anymore. Patricia's voice got softer. Sarah, I documented all of it, but I thought it was normal divorce adjustment anxiety. Now I'm wondering if those Tuesday and Friday visits were Emma trying to process what Marcus had been telling her the night before. Did you share this with Dr. Reyes? I'm meeting with her tomorrow morning. All of Emma's school records, including my nursing notes, will be part of her evaluation. Patricia paused. There's something else. Emma asked me today if the doctor she's going to see is going to ask her to choose between her parents. What did you tell her? I told her that Dr. Reyes was going to help the grown-ups figure out how to make sure Emma felt safe and loved. But Sarah, she started crying. She said she was tired of having to remember what to say to different people. After we hung up, I called my sister Jennifer in Portland. It was 10 p.m., but I needed to hear a familiar voice that wasn't connected to lawyers or social workers or custody evaluations. Sarah? Jesus, I've been worried sick. You missed calls, cryptic texts, what the hell is going on? I told her everything. The bruises, the coaching, the custody hearing, the supervised visits. When I finished, Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. That manipulative bastard, she finally said. Sarah, do you remember when we were kids, how Dad used to prep us before Mom's family visits? He'd spend hours telling us what topics to avoid, what stories to tell about how happy we were. That's completely different, Jen. Dad was just trying to keep the peace with Mom's parents. Was he? Or was he systematically teaching us to hide his drinking, his temper, the way he'd disappear for days at a time? Jennifer's voice was quiet but firm. Sarah, we learned to lie so well that we convinced ourselves the lies were true. It took me years of therapy to untangle what actually happened in our childhood from the story Dad taught us to tell. The parallel hit me like ice water. You think Emma's starting to believe Marcus's version of events? I think Emma's 7 years old, and the person she trusts most in the world is teaching her that loving her means protecting him from consequences. Even if it destroys you both in the process. Friday morning, I arrived at the Family Support Center 45 minutes early for my first supervised visit with Emma. The building looked like every other state facility, beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and the lingering smell of industrial disinfectant mixed with stale coffee. Through the waiting room's reinforced window, I watched other families navigate their own court-ordered interactions. A father reading green eggs and ham to twin toddlers while a supervisor took notes. A teenager sitting in sullen silence across from her mother, both of them staring at their phones instead of each other. Mrs. Mitchell? The supervisor assigned to our case was a woman in her 50s named Carol Brennan, with kind eyes and the practiced calm of someone who'd seen every family crisis imaginable. Emma should be here in about 10 minutes. Before we start, I want to review the guidelines with you. She handed me a laminated sheet. No physical contact without permission. No discussion of court proceedings. No questioning the child about the other parent's home. All conversations would be documented. Mrs. Mitchell, I've read the case file. I know this is difficult, but try to focus on just being Emma's mom during these 2 hours. Don't worry about proving anything, just connect with your daughter. At 3:15 p.m. exactly, Marcus's Honda pulled into the parking lot. Through the window, I could see him leaning over to talk to Emma before she got out. Even from a distance, his body language looked urgent, intense. Emma nodded several times, then climbed out slowly, her unicorn backpack trailing behind her. When she walked into the visitation room, my heart broke a little. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her usually bouncy hair pulled back in a messy ponytail that suggested Marcus had attempted to do it himself. She was wearing the pink dress I'd bought her for school pictures, but it was wrinkled like she'd slept in it. "Hi, Mommy," she said quietly, glancing at Carol before giving me a tentative hug. "Hi, sweetheart. I brought your favorite puzzles, the ones with the puppies." I kept my voice light, normal, even though everything about this sterile room with its security cameras felt anything but normal. We settled at the child-sized table, and Emma immediately gravitated toward a 200-piece puzzle of golden retriever puppies. For the first 20 minutes, things felt almost normal as we sorted edge pieces and talked about her upcoming Halloween costume. "Mrs. Patterson said we can have a costume parade at school next Friday," Emma said, holding up a puzzle piece with a puppy's ear. "I still want to be a butterfly, like we planned." "Of course. We can finish making the wings this weekend," I stopped myself. "There wouldn't be a this weekend. Not the way there used to be." Emma's face fell. "Daddy says you might be too busy with work to help with costumes now. He said maybe he should take me to buy one at the store instead." Carol was writing in her notebook, but I caught her glance up at Emma's words. "Emma, making your costume together has been my favorite part of Halloween planning. That hasn't changed. I found the matching piece for the puppy's ear. What else has Daddy said about Halloween?" "He said." Emma's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "He said maybe this is the last Halloween I'll get to trick or treat with you, because the judge might decide I should live with him all the time." My hand stilled on the puzzle pieces. "Emma, that's not how judges make decisions. They don't take little girls away from mommies who love him." "But what if you get in trouble for grabbing my arm?" "Daddy says sometimes mommies who hurt kids have to go to timeout, like jail timeout." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to go to jail, but I don't want to lie either." Carol had stopped writing entirely and was watching Emma with sharp attention. "Sweetheart, look at me." I waited until Emma met my eyes. "You never have to lie. Not to protect me, not to protect Daddy, not to protect anyone. The truth is always the right answer. But Daddy says sometimes the truth hurts people's feelings." "What kind of truth, baby?" Emma glanced nervously at Carol, then leaned closer to me. "Like the truth about the arm squeezing practice. Daddy says if I tell Dr. Reyes about that, it might make him very sad." The words hung in the air like a confession. Emma had just admitted, in front of a court-appointed supervisor, that Marcus had coached her about what to tell Dr. Reyes. But she'd also revealed something else: she was terrified of betraying him. Carol set down her pen entirely. "Emma, can you tell me more about this practice?" Emma's eyes darted between us, her small hands twisting the puzzle piece until I was afraid it would break. "I'm not supposed to talk about it with other people. Daddy says it's just between us." "But you brought it up, sweetheart," I said gently. "That means some part of you wants to talk about it." "I do, but..." Emma's voice cracked. "Mommy, what if telling the truth makes Daddy go away forever? What if the police come and I never see him again?" The manipulation was so deep that my 7-year-old was protecting her abuser. Marcus had convinced her that his consequences were her responsibility. It was textbook psychological abuse, and I was watching it destroy my daughter in real time. Carol leaned forward in her chair. "Emma, I want you to know something very important. When grown-ups make mistakes, the consequences aren't your fault. Even if telling the truth means a grown-up gets in trouble, that's because of what they chose to do, not because of what you said. But families are supposed to protect each other." Emma wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Daddy says I'm his special helper, and special helpers keep family secrets." My stomach clenched. "What other secrets has Daddy asked you to keep?" Emma was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely audible, "He said not to tell you that he listens to your work phone calls." "What do you mean, baby?" "When I'm at Daddy's apartment and you call to say goodnight, he puts the phone on speaker but tells me not to say anything. He listens to you talking to other people in the background, and sometimes he writes down names." Emma picked up another puzzle piece, avoiding my eyes. "He has a whole notebook with stuff about your job." Carol was writing furiously now. "Emma, do you remember any of the names your daddy wrote down?" "Rodriguez. He wrote that one down lots of times. And Thompson. And..." She scrunched up her forehead, thinking. "Patterson, I think? He got really excited about that one and said it was perfect." Patterson. My current case supervisor, Linda Patterson, not Linda Torres like I'd been thinking. Marcus had been listening to my work calls and collecting information about my cases and supervisors for weeks, maybe months. "Emma, this is very important," I said, keeping my voice calm despite my racing heart. "Did Daddy ever tell you why he was writing down these names?" "He said it was research for the judge meeting. He said judges like it when daddies know lots of details about mommy's jobs." Emma finally looked up at me. "Mommy, are you mad at me for not telling you?" "Oh, sweetheart, no. I'm not mad at you at all. You're being so brave by telling me now." But inside, I was reeling. Marcus hadn't just been coaching Emma to lie, he'd been conducting surveillance on my professional life, gathering ammunition to use against me in court. The Rodriguez case details that Emma knew hadn't come from seeing files at my house. They'd come from Marcus eavesdropping on my work calls and feeding the information back to her during their coaching sessions. Carol closed her notebook and looked directly at Emma. "Emma, I want you to remember what your mommy just told you. Telling the truth is always right, even when it's scary. Dr. Reyes is going to ask you some questions next week, and I want you to tell her everything you told us today. Can you do that?" Emma nodded solemnly, but I could see the fear still lurking in her eyes. As our 2 hours ended and Emma prepared to return to Marcus's custody for the weekend, she hugged me tightly. "Mommy, I don't want to do the practice anymore. It makes my stomach hurt." "I know, baby." Maybe you won't have to much longer. But as I watched her walk back to Marcus's car, I wondered if she'd just signed both our death warrants. The weekend crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every hour that Emma spent at Marcus's apartment felt like another opportunity for him to refine his manipulation, to prepare her for Dr. Rhea's evaluation, to convince her that protecting him was more important than telling the truth. Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. Rebecca Singh. Sarah, we have a problem. David Chin just filed a motion claiming you violated the supervised visitation guidelines by interrogating Emma about her father. They're saying Carol Brennan's notes show you deliberately prompted Emma to make statements that could prejudice Dr. Rhea's evaluation. My blood ran cold. That's not what happened. Emma brought up the coaching herself, and Carol was right there documenting everything. I know. I've already spoken with Carol, and her report actually supports our position. But Marcus is claiming you manipulated a vulnerable child during a supervised visit, which could look very bad to Judge Martinez. Rebecca's voice was tense. There's more. They're also alleging that you've been calling Emma excessively at Marcus's apartment, disrupting her adjustment time and creating additional stress. I call her once each night to say goodnight. That's what we've always done. According to their motion, you called 17 times between Thursday and Saturday morning. I grabbed my phone and checked my call log. 3 calls to Marcus's number since Thursday, exactly what I'd said. Rebecca, that's not true. I have 3 outgoing calls to his number in the past 3 days. Can you screenshot your call log and send it to me immediately? While I was taking screenshots, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Emma is having a rough weekend. She keeps crying and saying she's confused about what really happened with the arm bruises. Maybe we should consider family counseling to help her process all this trauma. The audacity was breathtaking. He was creating Emma's confusion through his coaching, then positioning himself as the concerned parent trying to help her heal from it. My phone rang again. This time, it was Patricia Chin from the school. Sarah, I'm sorry to bother you on a weekend, but something strange happened. A man claiming to be Emma's father called the school yesterday asking for copies of all her medical records and my nursing notes. That was probably Marcus. Did you give them to him? No, that's just it. When I asked him to verify Emma's information, he got several basic facts wrong, her birthday, her emergency contact information. Then he hung up abruptly. Patricia paused. Sarah, I think someone was trying to impersonate Marcus to get information about Emma's medical records. A chill ran down my spine. Did you report this to anyone? I called the main office, and they said they'd handle it. But Sarah, what if someone's trying to interfere with Dr. Rhea's investigation? What if they're looking for ways to discredit the nursing documentation? Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Detective Ray Patel standing on my front porch with another officer I didn't recognize. Patricia, I have to go. The police are here. Ray's expression was grim as I opened the door. Sarah, we need to talk. Can we come in? In my living room, Ray introduced his partner, Detective Lisa Wong from the Cybercrime Unit. Sarah, we've been investigating the allegations against Marcus, and we've uncovered some concerning digital evidence. Lisa opened a laptop. We obtained a warrant to examine Marcus's phone and computer records. What we found suggests a pattern of surveillance and manipulation that goes far beyond coaching Emma. She turned the screen toward me. Marcus has been using spyware to monitor your phone calls for the past 4 months. Every conversation you've had at home, every work call, every personal call, he's been recording all of it. My mouth went dry. Is that legal? Absolutely not. It's a federal crime under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. But more importantly for your custody case, it explains how Emma knew specific details about your work. Lisa clicked to another screen. Look at this. The screen showed a detailed spreadsheet with my name at the top. Columns included case names, supervisor comments, stress indicators, late work nights, and potential custody issues. Every entry was dated and cross-referenced with audio timestamps. He's been building a psychological profile of you for months, Ray said. Documenting every time you sounded tired on a work call, every time you mentioned a difficult case, every time you had to work late. Then he was feeding selected information to Emma and teaching her to repeat it back as her own observations. Lisa scrolled down to show more entries. But here's the really disturbing part. Look at this column labeled ER Prep. My vision blurred as I read the entries. October 10th, Enos Rodriguez case details. Practice session successful October 15th, arm bruising administered. E responded well to coaching October 18th, E ready for school nurse interaction. Story consistent October 20th, backup plan initiated, multiple phone calls to create harassment narrative. He planned all of this, I whispered. The bruises, the coaching, even the fake phone calls to make me look unstable. Ray nodded grimly. We also found deleted text messages between Marcus and David Chin discussing alternative strategies if the coaching approach didn't work. They were prepared to escalate to more serious false allegations if necessary. What does this mean for Monday's hearing? It means we're arresting Marcus Mitchell on charges of illegal surveillance, child endangerment, and filing false police reports, Lisa said, closing the laptop. But Sarah, there's something else you need to know. Emma's been conditioned to protect him for months. Even with all this evidence, she might still be reluctant to contradict the story he's taught her. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Emma wants to talk to you. She has something important to say before her appointment with Dr. Reyes tomorrow. The message felt like a trap, but it was also an opportunity. Ray, can you trace exactly where that text came from? He was already pulling out his own phone. Give me 5 minutes. The answer came back faster than expected, Marcus's apartment complex parking lot. He was sitting in his car with Emma, probably preparing for one final coaching session before Dr. Reyes' evaluation. We need to get there now, I said, grabbing my keys. But Ray was already shaking his head. Sarah, if we move too fast, he might destroy evidence or coach Emma even harder. We need to let this play out carefully. My phone rang. Emma's voice, small and scared. Mommy? Daddy says I need to tell you something before tomorrow. He says it's very important. In the background, I could hear Marcus whispering urgent instructions. Emma, sweetheart, what do you need to tell me? I pressed the phone closer to my ear, watching Ray and Lisa exchange meaningful glances as they listened. Daddy says I need to remember to tell Dr. Reyes about the other times you got angry at me. Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. About when you threw my juice box at the wall and said bad words. My heart stopped. That had never happened. Ever. Marcus's voice came through clearly in the background. Tell her about the time Mommy locked you in your room for 3 hours because you were too loud. Emma, I said carefully, when did these things happen, baby? There was a long pause, then Emma's voice, even smaller, I don't remember exactly. Daddy says sometimes when people are really upset, they forget things. But he helps me remember. Lisa was already typing rapidly on her laptop, recording the conversation with Emma's voice clearly admitting that Marcus was helping her remember events that never occurred. Emma, I want you to think really hard, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Can you picture Mommy throwing a juice box? Can you see it happening in your mind? Another pause. Not really. It's fuzzy. Like a dream. That's because it didn't happen, sweetheart. Dreams and real life are different. Marcus's voice again, sharper now. Emma, remember what we practiced. Tell Mommy you're scared to come home because you never know when she might get angry. But instead of repeating his script, Emma started crying. Daddy, I don't want to say that. It's not true. Emma, we talked about this. Sometimes grown-ups need help remembering how to be better parents. If you don't tell the truth about Mommy's anger, the judge might not know she needs help. Ray was already on his radio, calling for backup units to Marcus's location. Lisa continued recording as Emma's sobs became more audible. But Mommy doesn't get angry like that, Emma said through her tears. She gets sad sometimes about work, but she doesn't throw things or lock me up. Why do I have to say she does? Because Marcus's voice was getting impatient now. Sometimes we have to say things that feel uncomfortable to protect people we love. This protects our family. It protects you, Emma suddenly burst out, her 7-year-old voice filled with more clarity than I'd heard in weeks. It doesn't protect me or Mommy. It just makes everyone sad and confused. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone. Emma, I said softly, you're absolutely right. Lies don't protect families. They hurt them. I know, she whispered. My tummy hurts all the time now because I have to remember which story to tell which person. I can't even remember what really happened anymore. Marcus's voice came back, but it was different now, desperate, almost pleading. Emma, princess, you're just confused because this is all very stressful. Tomorrow when you talk to Dr. Reyes, just remember what Daddy taught you about. No. Emma's voice was stronger than I'd heard it in months. I don't want to remember your stories anymore. I want to tell MY truth. Ray was gesturing frantically. Patrol cars were pulling into Marcus's apartment complex. Through the phone, I could hear car doors slamming in the background. Daddy, there are police cars outside, Emma said, her voice shifting from defiant to scared. Lots of them. Marcus's voice turned cold. Emma, hang up the phone. Don't say anything else to Mommy. We're going to go inside right now and you're going to forget this conversation ever happened. But Emma didn't hang up. Instead, her voice came through clear and determined. Mommy, I want to come home. I'm tired of the practice games. I just want to tell Dr. Reyes the real truth tomorrow. What's the real truth, baby? That Daddy made the bruises on my arm to teach me what angry grabbing feels like. And that he listens to all your phone calls. And that he has a notebook full of lies for me to remember. Emma took a shaky breath. And that I love you and I want to come home. The line went dead, but it didn't matter. We had everything we needed. Ray's radio crackled with updates as we raced toward Marcus's apartment complex. Suspect and minor located in parking lot. Suspect appears agitated, attempting to re-enter vehicle with child. My hands gripped the passenger seat as Lisa took the corners faster than I thought possible in an unmarked sedan. Through the police scanner, I could hear the patrol officers coordinating their approach. Child appears distressed. Suspect is arguing with officers. Requesting family services unit for immediate child welfare assessment. Sarah, Ray said, not taking his eyes off the road, when we get there, I need you to stay back until we have Marcus in custody. If Emma sees you during the arrest, it could traumatize her further. But as we pulled into the Riverside Apartments complex, I could see Emma through the windshield of Marcus's Honda, her face pressed against the glass, clearly searching for something, or someone. The moment our car came into view, she pointed directly at me. Detective Patricia Wong from the Family Crimes Unit was already on scene, talking to Marcus beside his car while 2 patrol officers maintained a careful distance. Marcus was gesturing wildly, his voice carrying across the parking lot. This is harassment. I was having a private conversation with my daughter about her therapy appointment tomorrow. There's nothing illegal about preparing a child for psychological evaluation. Emma had gotten out of the car and was standing behind Detective Wong, her unicorn backpack clutched against her chest like armor. Even from 50 feet away, I could see she'd been crying. As we approached, Marcus spotted me and his expression shifted from indignant to calculating. Sarah. Thank God you're here. Emma's been having some kind of breakdown. She's saying confused things, mixing up her memories. I think all this court stress has been too much for her. Detective Wong looked at Ray. We've got the suspect's phone with evidence of the illegal recording software. But Dr. Patterson, the child has been asking for her mother continuously since we arrived. Mommy. Emma broke away from the adults and ran toward me, but stopped abruptly when Detective Wong gently caught her arm. Emma, honey, we need to follow some rules right now to keep everyone safe, Detective Wong said kindly. But you can talk to your mommy while we finish up here. Marcus was still talking, his voice getting more desperate. Emma's been having nightmares about the custody evaluation. She's terrified she's going to say something wrong and disappoint someone. I was just trying to help her feel more confident about tomorrow. Is that what you call it? Detective Wong pulled out her phone and played back a recording. Marcus's voice filled the parking lot. Asterisk, tell her about the time Mommy locked you in your room for 3 hours because you were too loud. Asterisk. Marcus's face went white. You recorded our private conversation? That's entrapment. Actually, that's evidence of child endangerment and coaching a minor to commit perjury, Ray said, pulling out handcuffs. Marcus Mitchell, you're under arrest for illegal electronic surveillance, child endangerment, and conspiracy to file false reports. As Ray began reading Miranda rights, Emma started crying again. Is Daddy going to jail? This is all my fault for not remembering the stories right. Detective Wong knelt down to Emma's level. Emma, listen to me carefully. None of this is your fault. When grown-ups break rules, the consequences belong to them, not to children. But I told the truth about the practice games. Daddy's going to be so mad at me. I couldn't stay back anymore. Emma, sweetheart, telling the truth was the bravest thing you could do. Daddy's not mad at you. Daddy made some very bad choices, and now other grown-ups have to help him learn better ways to handle his feelings. Marcus, now handcuffed, turned toward us with desperation in his voice. Emma, princess, remember what Daddy always says, we protect each other, right? Tell these nice police officers that we were just practicing for your appointment, like a school play. Even now, even while being arrested, he was still trying to manipulate her. But Emma surprised everyone. She walked over to Marcus, looked up at him with her 7-year-old eyes full of sadness but also clarity, and said, Daddy, I love you, but I'm not going to lie anymore. Lies make my tummy hurt and they make Mommy cry. I want you to learn how to tell the truth too. Detective Wong was writing furiously in her notebook as Marcus was placed in the patrol car. Mrs. Mitchell, Emma's going to need to stay with emergency foster care tonight pending a psychiatric evaluation tomorrow morning. It's standard procedure when there's been documented coaching and manipulation. My heart sank. After everything, I still couldn't take my daughter home. But Emma reached for my hand. Mommy, will you visit me at the foster house? And will you bring my butterfly costume? I still want to be a butterfly for Halloween. Through my tears, I promised her both. 3 weeks later, I sat in Judge Martinez's courtroom for what I hoped would be our final hearing. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, casting everything in golden light that felt almost symbolic. Emma sat between Rebecca and me, wearing her favorite purple dress and clutching the small stuffed butterfly we bought together at Target. Dr. Patricia Reyes had submitted her final evaluation report the day before. 43 pages documenting Marcus's systematic psychological manipulation of Emma, complete with forensic analysis of his coaching techniques, the spyware evidence, and Emma's remarkable recovery once removed from his influence. In my professional opinion, Dr. Reyes had written, Emma Mitchell has been the victim of severe parental alienation and emotional abuse. Her father's actions constitute psychological terrorism designed to weaponize the child against her mother. However, with appropriate therapeutic intervention, Emma has demonstrated extraordinary resilience and is already showing significant improvement in her ability to distinguish between coached narratives and actual memories. Marcus sat at the defendant's table with his court-appointed attorney. He'd been released on bail 3 days after his arrest, but supervised visitation had been suspended pending the outcome of his criminal trial. David Chen had withdrawn from the case after the recording evidence made Marcus's coaching undeniable. Judge Martinez reviewed the case file one final time. Mr. Mitchell, your actions represent one of the most calculated and disturbing cases of parental manipulation I've encountered in 12 years on this bench. You systematically abused your daughter's trust, traumatized her through false memory implantation, and attempted to destroy her relationship with her mother for your own financial benefit. Emma squeezed my hand as Judge Martinez continued. The court finds overwhelming evidence that you installed illegal surveillance software to monitor Ms. Mitchell's communications, coached your daughter to make false abuse allegations, and physically harmed the child to create evidence supporting those false claims. Judge Martinez's voice was stern. These actions constitute felony child endangerment and perjury conspiracy. Marcus's attorney attempted to interject, but Judge Martinez held up her hand. Furthermore, the financial motive is clear from your own documented communications. Text messages between you and your former attorney explicitly discuss reducing child support obligations through obtaining primary custody, regardless of Emma's best interests. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as Judge Martinez turned to Emma. Emma, Dr. Reyes tells me you've been very brave through all of this. Is there anything you'd like to say to the court today? Emma stood up, her small voice carrying clearly through the courtroom. Your Honor, I want to keep living with my mommy. She never hurt me or locked me up or threw juice boxes. Those were stories Daddy taught me to say, and they weren't true. She took a deep breath. I still love my daddy, but I don't want to do practice games anymore. I just want to be a regular kid and tell the truth about everything. Judge Martinez smiled, the first time I'd seen her expression soften throughout this entire ordeal. Thank you for your honesty, Emma. That took a lot of courage. The gavel came down with finality. The court awards full physical and legal custody to Sarah Mitchell, effective immediately. Mr. Mitchell's parental rights will be suspended pending completion of court-ordered psychological treatment and anger management. Visitation, if eventually resumed, will be supervised and therapeutic in nature. As we walked down the courthouse steps, Emma skipped beside me, her butterfly backpack bouncing with each step. Mommy, can we stop at the store and get stuff to make real Halloween cookies? Not the practice kind, the real kind that taste good. I laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in months. Absolutely, sweetheart. We can make all the real cookies you want.